Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at something I think we all think about, we all hope for it, and that is living longer. But we're not talking about, like magical potions or anything like that. We're going to be looking at, like recent trends in life expectancy. Are we
Yeah.
living longer? Are things kind of stalling out? Are we actually losing ground? What's going on?
Yeah, and what's really fascinating about this, I think, is that, we often think of life expectancy as just this kind of abstraction on it.
Right.
But when we really start to dig into these trends, what we can see is that it's really a window
Yeah,
into all of the factors that are shaping the length and quality of our lives.
totally. And we've got kind of an interesting mix of sources today to kind of help us unpack all of this.
Okay.
So we'll start local. There's a Canadian news report about a really bad flu season. It's hitting the Lonadière region of Quebec pretty hard.
Oh, wow.
And then we'll hop over to Europe. There's an article from Euronews that's exploring why life expectancy gains have been slowing down over there.
Hmm.
And then just for kicks, we'll sprinkle in a French article
Okay.
about foods to avoid if you're feeling depressed.
Now, I have to say, at first glance, that sounds like kind of a strange mix.
I know, right?
What do those things have to do with each other? But I promise you, as we go through these, you'll see how they actually connect in some really interesting
They
ways.
totally do. So let's start with this flu outbreak in Lenaudière.
Okay.
The news report says it's one of the worst they've seen in a decade. Um, Tons of people going to the doctor, ending up in the ER. Um, I'm curious, like, how does a bad flu season in one area
Right.
connect to this bigger question of life expectancy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Even what might seem like a small blip, like a bad flu season, in one region,
Yeah.
it can actually have a ripple effect on those overall life expectancy calculations.
Hmm.
It just shows you how sensitive those measures are to anything that's going to impact the health of a population.
So even though it's, just one region of Canada, it gives us a sense of how something like a virus can, really kind of shift those big picture numbers.
Exactly.
Which makes me think about the Euronews article,
Yeah.
what they were saying about life expectancy in Europe.
Uh-huh.
They mentioned that while the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic did cause a dip in life expectancy,
Right.
there's actually been like a larger slowdown in gains that started way back in the 2010s.
Yeah, that's a really crucial point, I think, because it suggests that there's something bigger going on here
Yeah.
than just, one-off events like a pandemic.
Right.
There are these deeper, long-term trends at play.
So what are some of those trends? What are they talking about? What's behind this slowdown in Europe?
Well, they highlighted a few things. One was the rise in heart disease, which they linked to, lifestyle choices, things like diet and exercise.
Hmm.
They also mentioned the potential impact of changing migration patterns in certain countries.
Oh, interesting.
And interestingly enough, the fact that different countries were more or less prepared
Oh,
for the
the
pandemic.
pandemic. Wow.
Yeah.
So we've got lifestyle choices. We've got these kind of like societal shifts. We've got public health systems, like
Mhm.
all potentially playing a role here.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm kind of wondering how this French article about food and depression fits in. It seems totally unrelated, but is there a connection?
There is. It might seem a little strange at first, but there's definitely a connection.
Okay.
So that article, it focuses on avoiding certain foods when you're feeling down.
Right.
But the key idea underneath is this thing called chronic inflammation.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that chronic inflammation, which can be made worse by a diet high in, processed foods, red meat,
Yeah.
has been linked to all sorts of health problems, including heart disease.
Wait, so you're saying there's like a chain reaction here?
Yeah.
A bad diet might lead to inflammation,
Uh-huh.
which could increase your risk of heart disease,
Right.
which the Euronews article pointed to as a factor in, slowing down life expectancy gains.
Exactly. And it really highlights how interconnected our physical and mental health are,
Right.
and how the choices we make in one area can have these ripple effects in other areas.
So for you listening, what jumps out at you from all of this? Do you see any connections to your own life or the choices you're making? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, and to add another layer to this, think about what the Euronews article said about how, national policies can actually impact population health.
Hmm.
It raises a really big question, like where does personal responsibility end and where does the need for like systemic change begin?
Wow. Yeah.
If governments have a role in promoting health, how does that balance with individual choices about diet or lifestyle, or even something like getting a flu shot?
Right. Or access to healthcare or, like all of those things. It's like, You can be making all the right choices, but if the environment around you is,
Yeah.
not supporting those choices, it can be a real uphill battle.
It really can, and I think it's not about, blaming one side or the other,
Right.
but about recognizing how those individual actions and the larger societal structures are all intertwined.
They are. It reminds me of what they said in the Euro News article about how different countries were more or less prepared for the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like some clearly fared better than others during COVID-19. And,
Hmm.
and it wasn't just about luck.
Right.
It was about having strong healthcare systems, clear communications from leaders, a population that trusted and followed public health guidance.
And that trust is something that's built over time, through consistent policies that prioritize the well-being of citizens.
Right.
It involves investing in public health infrastructure, making sure people have access to quality healthcare, creating environments that make healthy choices easier.
So if we want to see those life expectancy gains, start to climb again, it's not just about individual choices.
Right.
It's about creating a world where those choices are supported and within reach.
Exactly. And this is where I think it's so important to bring it back to you, the listener.
Yeah,
Think about your own community. What policies or initiatives are in place that either support or hinder healthy living?
that's a good question.
Are there areas where you see a need for improvement or opportunities to kind of step up and advocate for change?
Right. And I know it's easy to get overwhelmed by these like big complex issues,
Yeah,
but I think that's where awareness comes in.
yeah.
Like just by understanding, the forces at play, we can start to see where we might be able to make a difference, even in small ways.
Absolutely. And that could be anything from supporting local farmers markets to advocating for better public transportation to just having conversations with, friends and family about the importance of mental and physical well-being.
Right? Like we often think of, living a long life as this individual goal,
Yeah.
but these sources really highlight how interconnected we all are.
Yeah.
Like our choices impact not just our own health, but the health of our communities and even nations.
Yeah, that interconnectedness, it's both a challenge and an opportunity. It means we can't solve these problems in isolation.
Right.
But it also means that even small individual actions can have a ripple effect and contribute to positive change.
I love the ripple effect.
Yeah,
It makes me think of that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
that's a good one.
Like if we can create a healthier society overall, it benefits everyone.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a final kind of thought-provoking idea for you, the listener.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about these external factors and societal structures,
Uh,
but what about the role of mindset and attitude in longevity?
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like, could having a positive outlook actually impact how long we live?
Hmm.
Well, there's a growing body of research that suggests just that.
Really?
Yeah, studies have shown that people with a strong sense of purpose, optimism, social connections, they tend to live longer, healthier lives.
So even though we're talking about, these big complex issues like public health policy and chronic
All
disease,
right.
there's also a role for something as simple as choosing to focus on the good, cultivating gratitude, and nurturing those relationships that bring us joy.
Exactly. It's not about ignoring the challenges,
Right.
but about approaching life with a sense of resilience, purpose, and connection.
I love that. That's a really empowering thought to kind of end on.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in the face of these big global trends, we still have a degree of agency over our own well-being. Yeah, it really is amazing to think about, something as simple as your mindset could have that big of an impact.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what other things are we overlooking when it comes to, living longer, healthier lives?
Right. I mean, there's so much more to explore, and that's what makes this whole topic so fascinating. There are always new discoveries being made, and the more we understand about the factors that influence longevity, the better equipped we are to make those choices that support our well-being.
Right. And speaking of, exploring further, we've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
Yeah, we have.
Where should we encourage them to go from here?
Well, I think, this deep dive is just the beginning. We've provided some food for thought, as it were.
Yeah.
But, it's really up to each listener to continue exploring these ideas and see how they connect to their own lives. The links to all the sources that we discussed today are in the episode description. So that's a great place to start.
Yeah, you could dig deeper into those articles and see what else resonates with you.
Right.
Maybe you'll even discover some new questions or areas you want to research further on your own.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be the one to make the next big breakthrough
Oh, going to be awesome.
in our understanding of longevity, right?
Yeah, but even without making, groundbreaking discoveries, I think the key takeaway here is that we all have more power than we realize to shape our own health and well-being.
Yeah.
Whether it's, making small changes to our diet, advocating for better public policies, or just cultivating a more positive outlook,
Uh-huh.
every step we take ripples outward
It does.
and contributes to a healthier future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Beautifully said. And on that note, until next time, keep diving deep and keep asking those big questions.
We'll see you next time.